Thank you for inviting me. It's my pleasure to be here with all of you guys. I'm going to share a little bit about my experience in identifying and defining problems. And to tell you about it, I'm going to share my story. So my personal experience, how my company dealt with these issues and how we got to a real problem to work with. Feel comfortable to send questions or to ask questions. I'm here to answer and to help you. I feel like it might be better if you wait until the end to ask all the questions so I can give you all the attention. But feel free to go sending the questions in the chat if you prefer, or if you think you're going to forget the question. So I have time to answer all of you, okay? So to start, I'm going to introduce myself to you. I'm Bianca, as you know. I'm from Brazil, and I have two projects now. I have Grifa, that's in a startup. We are a social impact startup, and that's the case I'm going to focus more to tell you how we got to the problem in the startup area, how we discover who is our customer and everything to get to our solution after. But I also have Oasis de Sonhos, which is an NGO, so a nonprofit organization. I work with both. My area is really social entrepreneurship, but I have experience with regular entrepreneurship as well. And on this topic, on this specific topic, talking about problems, there is not many differences between a regular company and a social company, besides the topic being more about impact when I'm talking about a social startup. So I hope you learn a little bit from the experience. And I'm going to share a little bit about my journey as well, who I am, how I got here. So I like to say it always started in 2014. I had an opportunity, like a once in a lifetime opportunity to live a year in Canada. So I moved there and I did my last year of high school in Toronto. And while I was there, I faced many different situations that I had not experienced in Brazil before. And that was like a life-changing experience for me. First thing that happened is that while I was there, I had the opportunity to speak and to go with my school to the United Nations when they were first talking about SDGs. So the social agenda, the 2030 agenda for the social development. I was there right in the beginning, learning a little bit about what they were planning, what were the topics about, and everything they wanted to share with the world so we could work together. So that was really important for me to understand since the beginning where I knew my problem was going to be. I already knew my problem was going to be something in the SDGs. So that was really life-changing. And moreover, I saw a lot of things in Canada that I didn't see here in Brazil. And I was really worried, and that made me really sad to realize I wanted Brazil to be more like Canada, and I wanted to be part of that. Both in social issues, but also in entrepreneur issues and everything you can think about. And I feel like here in Latin America, many of you might feel like I did and be looking at other countries and thinking, oh, I wish my country was more like their country, and wanting to do something about it. But then I came back, and in 2015, I enrolled at university. And while in university, I entered Incubadora Social. That's a social incubator at my university, which worked with waste collectors. So I was there helping the waste collectors to find a model for their business, to work better together, to solve some fights they could have between them. So that's where I learned a lot of concepts on social entrepreneurship. Then in 2016, I started my NGO. As I told you, I have Oasis de Sonhos, which is a nonprofit. And what we do is that we rebuild places. We paint the walls, we use pallets to make furniture, and we do everything to make the place look better, brighter, more colorful, and for people wanting to be there. And we do that with donations and volunteering. But that wasn't enough for me yet. And in 2018, I started the idea of Grifa. That's my startup. You're going to learn a lot about Grifa today, so I'm not going to tell many about it now. But also in 2018, I had the opportunity to be an intern at Sempreende. Sempreende is a school, an entrepreneurship school, innovation school. It's really nice because there I learned more about design thinking, about marketing, about business model, and everything I'm going to talk to you now, we were made to do in Grifa because of Sempreende. So it was really important for me to be working there. And at the end of last year, I managed to leave Sempreende and dedicate totally to Grifa. So it was really important to me. And because of all this journey, in 2019, I went to SUSE, the study of the US Institute on Social Entrepreneurship. So I spent 40 days in the US learning about social entrepreneurship and everything I needed to know, and you need to know as well to start a social company. But here, I'm not going to be talking only about social. I'm going to be talking in general how we found the problem we were trying to solve. And actually, I'm going to start from the beginning. And the starting point for Grifa wasn't the problem. We didn't start right. We started wrong because we started by the solution. So back in 2018, we knew we wanted to start a company. And actually, we knew what company we wanted to start. So I knew I was wanting to start something involving donation to help people to get more money for their nonprofits. And I had seen a company, an American company, doing something like they sell raffles, they sell numbers, so people can try to get a prize in the end. And the money from they raised from this selling went to a social organization. And I saw that and was like, oh, I want to bring that to Brazil. And that's how Grifa started. We started with a business model. Here it's written in Portuguese because it was our old slogan, but it's like, have you ever imagined a raffle where everyone wins? And that was our model, and we started with that. We didn't have a problem. We didn't know the problem we were trying to solve. We had a model. People would give us money. We would give an amazing experience to someone. Then part of the money would go to a nonprofit. And because of that, because the nonprofit and one person would win the prize, we said that everyone wins. And as I said, we started with that. I didn't know who was my persona. I didn't know who I was trying to help. I didn't know the problem these people have. So you can imagine that this didn't work. This wasn't a good solution because I didn't know what I was doing. I just started something without asking people anything. I didn't get to the nonprofit and ask, oh, why do you need money? Why can't you raise your own money? And also, I didn't went to the donor and asked him, why don't you give money to a nonprofit? What do we need to do for you to give us money? So this model didn't work. People didn't understand what we were doing. People didn't buy from us, and we realized everything was wrong because we forgot this special rule. And this rule is always, always, always start with the problem. If you start with the problem, you will be able to give a better solution. And after we learned that, and we learned that from a mistake, we learned that by not starting with the problem, by trying and seeing it wasn't working, we decided to start right. And then that's why I told you Sempreende was really important on this process, because by starting right, I used Sempreende, which was the company I worked in. I talked to my bosses and they said, yes, we are going to help you. And we started an entire design thinking process. And that was really important for us. Here, I'm not going to tell you the details about design thinking. I'm going to tell you more about how was it for us. But I would totally say to you, go search and do something like that for your company as well. I know you were going through a process here with Vodani Foundation, and I imagine they had told you something about design thinking as well, even though they might not have said the name design thinking, but I'm sure the tools you are learning already. So design thinking is a process that goes through these 5 steps. And the first step is empathize. So empathize is when you really talk to people. You listen to people to understand how they feel, what they want, and what you could give them. You don't start giving a solution. That's like the third step. You first empathize, so you talk to people, then you define what is your problem, and only after these 2 steps, you start to ideate, prototype, and test. And that's what we did. We forgot everything we had before. We only knew we wanted to work with nonprofit organizations and that we wanted to work with raising money for them, but we had no idea how to do it. We really started to talk to people to discover why they donate money or why they don't donate money. And that's how we started our process. And that's another image I want you to see. I know it's in Portuguese, but I think you can understand as well, because these are the same steps. So the first one is the immersion. That's when you empathize and you define the problem. After we have the ideation, the prototype, and only after that, when you really test and deliver your idea. And if you look closely, the biggest part and the part we have more stuff happening is here in the immersion. So it's where you are asking people, you are doing research, you are really trying to get to a good problem, because only a good problem will give you a good solution. Always, always it starts with the problem. And that's what we did. So we knew we had 3 publics we wanted to understand. We needed to understand the organizations. So people who run a nonprofit and understand what do they need, what can we give them in order to then to grow, to raise money and to make more impact. We had the experience part. I don't know if you remember, but we were giving an experience to people who bought from us. So we needed to know what people who want an experience needed and what we could give them. And we also had the donor. So why do people give money to nonprofit organizations? And that's how we started our process. You can see there's a lot of post-its and paper and writing. And that's what I would tell you to do. I would advise you to do. Because the good thing about post-its is that you can change. You can change places. Oh, this idea is not good anymore. Let's take it off. It doesn't work. And that's what we did. And you can see also it was really colorful. So we had 1 different color for each person. So we had 1 color for experience, 1 color for organizations, and 1 color for the donors. So we could really try and understand everything that was happening. And if you notice, we also had food. It's important to be fed when you are doing this kind of process, so you are happier and think better and get to the answers. So this was the process we started. This is a good image that shows how our design thinking experience went. I tried to find it in English, but I wasn't able to. But what it does is that you come from surface. So what we knew, people don't donate enough in Brazil. That was what we had as a problem. And we had to really go deep. So go deeper on these people to understand why. Why did that happen? So what did people think and say? What did people do and use? But more, we needed to know what people know, feel, and dream of. So we needed really to go into their minds to understand what were their donations habits, or if they had no donation habits, why? Why did it happen? So that's what we started to do. So I showed you the pictures, but the tools we used to do it were all these tools, and you can see there are a lot of them. We didn't use all at the same time, and we used some more than one time, because it was a process. And that's like the magic of design thinking, because you can go back and forward how many times you need. There's no rush. You have to give yourself to the process, really be there, enjoy, and so you will be able to get to good answers. And better, even better than good answers, you need to have good questions. With good questions, you can get to what your client needs. So we used brainstorming. We put all our ideas there and starting putting like suppositions. Why did we think people donate? Why they don't donate and everything? We put it all there. We did research, so a lot of searches to see on the internet what are people talking about donation. And just one observation, I'm talking about donation all the time because that's the issue my company solves. If you are opening, I don't know, a cake shop, you are going to see what are the habits people have about cake. What are they searching on Google about cake? What are people saying about cake? So these can be used to any company you're going to do. Because what we did was research on our subject. So we put like, we threw donation on Google and saw what was going on the news, what was going on social medias. So everything people were talking about donation. More than that, we did interviews. We interviewed around 50 people to get to good answers. And one really important thing about interviews is that we have the tendency to ask direct questions. So for example, if I'm talking about donation, you would imagine one question I did was, do you donate? Yes or no? This is not a question we asked, because we knew people were going to answer what they thought we wanted to hear. And we didn't want to listen what we wanted to listen. We wanted to listen the real answer. So it's really important when planning the questions for the interview, not to use yes, no questions. Use questions that go deep in what the person thinks. So for example, instead of asking if people donate, we could ask, what would make you donate something? And with that question, if the person donates, they would tell us, oh, I donate to this organization because of this, this, and that. Or, oh, I wouldn't donate because of this, this, and that. So it's better to ask questions that give room to the person to answer more. And the more the person speaks, the better, because you are going to learn more and to get more information about them. So it's really important not to start in the topic, and like a question you should never ask is like, would you buy this? Do you like this idea? Because if they know it's your idea and you are presenting it, they will for sure say yes. They want to make you happy. They want for you to feel glad. So people answer what they think you want to hear. And especially because we are talking about donations, people would answer the best answer. They would want to look nice, look like good people. So really be careful, because the most important part about the interview are the questions you are going to ask. Good questions lead to good answers. Don't think it's the opposite. It's not the person who is going to give you the answer. You have to know what question to ask. So really think about it. Use the mentors and everything you're going to have on this program to ask if the question is good. And every time you can answer a question with yes or no, it's not a good question. So you should reformulate it. Moreover, we also did forms. So we did some different forms to see how people react to different approaches. So we had, for example, a form for donations for the elderly people, other for animals, other for kids, different stories, different pictures. So we could see what people answered better to each of them. Then we found the persona. So we draw what is our ideal customer based on the interview, the research, and the forms we did. So we gathered all these answers we had, all this data, all this information, and started to draw a persona. And after the persona, we did the empathy mapping. I don't know if you had contact with this tool before, but it's this one. It's where you answer what your persona feel and thinks, what your persona listens, what they see, what they do and speak, and also what are their pains and what are their objectives. It's really important to know this really clearly, because that's the way you are going to be able to understand better. And when you have like a visual tool like this, it's good for you to look and understand. So even if you don't have like a space in your room to put a big paper and use Post-its, try to write everything down. Because when you write, you memorize better and you can read and you can check and have it all with you always, so you can work with. Don't rely on your memory, because your memory is going to betray you sometimes. So don't rely only on that. Document everything you do. And after we had the persona and the empathy method, we started to define our problem. And only after we did all of this, we started to develop our canvas. So you can see, this time we started correctly. We didn't start with the solution, we started by the problem. And so we could develop a better business model. We could have made a better canvas, the business model canvas for our company, and really develop a solution that would help people. So one thing we discovered, for example, is that people who wanted an experience didn't want to donate. They were not connected. We only had organizations and the donor as a client. The other thing we realized is that we had to think on a totally different model if we wanted to be profitable, or in other words, if you wanted to make money. And we need money to survive, right? So we had to change everything in order to start raising money and to start making the company work. So I'm going to show a little bit about what we found on our problem. So what we discovered through all this process and how it was so important for us. So we discovered that companies and people, they want to generate social impact, but they find many obstacles in their way. So these we imagined before. And that's what we had before we started all the process. It was like, oh, people want to help, but they don't know how. But it was like a supposition. It wasn't a certainty of what we had. So after the research, we were able to discover what are these obstacles. And because of that, we could deliver a solution that went directly to destroy these obstacles and really help people. So we spoke with 51 companies, so businesses, and 72 people that we interviewed. And we found that around 80% of them wanted to help in any way or already helped in any way. And we found that the obstacles they found on their way were the lack of time. It was the main one. They did not have time to research for social projects to help. They did not have time to keep talking to people and to give them money. The lack of continuity. So sometimes they started donation to someone, but after they had no return. So the organization didn't give an answer, didn't tell how was the money used. So they wouldn't continue donating without knowing where the money was led to. The lack of information. Sometimes they had the time, they started the research, they found an organization, but they did not have many information about how they could donate, about why they would donate, about what people needed. So we found this lack of information really strong. And the difficulty to find projects. So people sometimes did not have how to look for it, and they didn't find a project that matched what they were expecting, what they were trying to help, the social issues that moved them more. They couldn't find it close to them. So these were the 4 problems we found. So we came from this, a really broad and general view, to a detailed set of problems we could try to solve. And that's what we did. So Grifa, today we connect donors to organizations. So we help to build that bridge so they can connect, and people who have money can give money to companies who need it. So that's what we did. And we do this through 4 steps. So keep in mind these problems, because the 4 steps we do are exactly the answer for these problems here. So what do we do today? We have a trust tip of social projects. So every social project that enroll at Grifa, we check their background, we check if they are active, if they are doing stuff, if they are generating impact, if they have all the documents that they need to have here in Brazil to exist and to work. So that's the first step. And with this, we attack directly the problem of lack of information, because we guarantee people that we have all the information. The second step we have is a match between donor and organization. So whoever here already used Tinder, you know they match people. We match donors and organizations. So people who enter on Grifa, they tell us what they need, what they're looking for, and we show them the best organization that fits their wishes. So with this, we go directly with the difficult finding projects, because we find the projects for these people. The third part we have is a following and tracking of the project. So we give the project to the person, we give the money, so we make the transaction. So the donor gives us the money and we give to the organization. And after, we do the follow-up. So we check how the organization is using this money, where it's going to. So we solve what problem? We solve the lack of continuity. So we give people the info they need to keep donating to the project, because now we give them the information they want to know. They follow up of their donation. And lastly, we do the social impact relatories. So we give a relatory to every person who donates us. They get a results relatory every month. And one time a year, we give a social impact relatory, a full report of everything that happened, how the money was used, every cent, what it became in terms of impact. So with all this, we help in the lack of time. That was the main issue we found with people. They did not have time to do all this process. And our website now, our system, our platform gives it to them. They don't have to worry anymore. They just need to have the money and let us do the rest. And we only got to this solution because we had all the answers before. We had the good questions to give us the good answers and to make it all work. I want to give you 2 examples. Oh, that's how we drew our model today. I want to give you like 2 examples of some questions we asked in the interviews. That was like the biggest part of our process. We always started the interview asking people what they felt the world needed to be better. So how would be a better world? And what did they do to create this better world? And they would answer things like volunteering, giving food to people, helping in this or that way, and everything. So after this question, we made some other questions in terms of what they answered. So for example, if the person said they volunteered to help creating a better world, we would ask, oh, where do you volunteer? Why do you volunteer? And all these questions. And in the middle there, we would insert something about donation. So what do you think about donation? Have you ever donated to any place? Tell me about an experience of a time you made a donation. So we would ask questions about that. So this one is a good one. Always ask people to tell an experience about something. So for example, if you were working with a company, I don't know, an electric company. So you could ask, tell me about one time you had a bad electrical experience in your house. or sometimes the light wouldn't come back no matter what you did, or something like that. So always ask people to tell you stories, because they are going to tell you more than what you want. And that's what you need to get to good answers. And the last question we made in all interviews was, if you had a magical wand, what would you do? What would you eliminate from the world, and what would you create? So this was a really good one for the closing, because people sometimes went crazy, but because we are talking about social impact, it was really nice, because people would say things like, oh, I would end hunger, or no more animal would be left on the street. And from that, we could see, we could feel and understand what were the causes people worried more about. What were the topics, the subjects they wanted to work. So it was really nice. And this magical wand question, I would advise you to use as well. Of course, you adapt to your context. For example, talking about the electrical company, if you had a magical wand, what would you do with the light in your house, or something like that? Talking about cakes, if you had a magical wand, what cake would you create? How would your cake look like or taste like? So this is good, because it makes your customer to tell you what they want and what they dream of. And that's what you want to know from the design thinking. You want to go deep in their mind to see how they feel, how they think, and everything about it. This was our process to discover the problem. And after the problem, as I told you, we used a lot of different tools to get to solutions. But more than that, the problem and your value proposition is something you have to keep thinking of all the time. So it's not something you validate once and that's it for life. You need to keep in touch with your customer, with the people you are helping and you are serving, in order to see if it still works and if it's still an issue. So after our design think process, almost like 6 months after it, we had a new solution developed and everything was working. We did another process that was a design sprint process. This one was focused more on communication. So the first one was to discover a problem and to deliver a solution. And after, we had the design sprint process to see how we would communicate with people to give them the best solution. So these are my coworkers. So we are all the 3 owners of the company now. And we worked together to discover how would we talk to people, how would we deliver the information. And I'm showing you that because it's really important for you to know that this thinking process, this process of working, putting things in paper, using Post-its, it won't happen only one time. It's going to happen a lot of times. And more than knowing the problem, you have to talk to people, to see problem, to see how to deliver the solution, to see how to communicate it. So really use your customers and the people you know, the people who from your family, your friends, and people you don't know, to validate everything you want to do and to see how you can give them a better solution. And as I said in the beginning, a better solution is only able with a good problem. And a good problem is not necessarily something that's massive, something giant that you need to solve. A good problem is actually something that, a good problem is actually something well-defined. So if you have the problem really written, no matter if it's a small problem or if it's a big problem, if it gets many people, the entire world, or only your city, if you really understand it, you are going to be able to give a better solution. So always start asking people what are their issues, what are the problems that happen. And I would also want to tell you a small quote I really like. It's from Tomlin. She's an actress. And she said that she always wondered why somebody doesn't do something about it. Then she realized she was somebody. And I feel that we have the tendency to do that all the time. We see something wrong and we think, oh, the government should do something about it. Somebody should do something about it. The teacher, the boss, the school, the street, I don't know. Someone should do something. But we can do something as well. And I feel that these people who really understand what bothers you, this is the best way to start. Get something that bothers you. Get that stuff that made you think somebody should do something about it. When you find this, that might be the problem you need to explore. So you can find the problem and you still need to explore, to go deep, to discover, to do research, to do interviews. But start with something that bothers you. Start with something that you think all day on. For example, can be something really silly. I don't like my alarm sound. Every time I wake up, I think, oh, someone should change the alarm signs we have on the alarm clock. Why don't you do a different song? Why don't you create something new to wake up people? So through your day, try to look at things that bother you. I propose this exercise the time I made this same class for the Brazil at Guadani, and I would make this one for you too. It's not to make you feel depressed, but try for one day, walk with a notebook, a small notebook, and write every time you think, oh, this is bad, this bothers me, this is not a good thing, somebody should do something. So every time you feel that, you take a note. Oh, the bus stop was crowded. Oh, the alarm clock was horrible. The coffee didn't taste good. The food in the restaurant was cold. So write down all this bad stuff you find and then go home, read through it, and your problem might be on this notebook. So always try to think on your daily basis, on your routine, what bothers you and how you could solve it. But don't forget, ask people good questions and you'll get good answers. So this is a little bit about my story. So that's what I wanted to share with you. And I want to leave all the rest of the time for us to talk. So I want to hear about your experiences. I want to answer your questions. So feel free so I can help you. Maybe if you have a question about your problem or about anything, if you want to know more, I'm here for you now.
Awesome, Bianca. Thank you so much. I think it was really insightful. Like, I enjoyed it a lot.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, and I think it's a really nice, a really good advice or tip. The thing about the writing down all the bad stuff of your life. I think it's very helpful to see, to immerse yourself in your real world.
Yes. But don't forget, the day after you do that, write the good stuff so you don't feel depressed, you don't get sad.
Yeah, just don't keep doing it like every time.
Yeah, don't do it every day.
You'll get depressed. Now, we don't want to see and have depressed people here.
Yes.
So let's open. Do you
I will
have...
stop sharing now so I can see all of you.
Awesome. So, Regina, you were saying that it was an amazing quote. Why do you think it is an amazing? Do you want to share us a little bit about you?
Yes. Hi, Bianca.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. Well, yes, that's an amazing quote because I usually always use like something like that, that instead of being complaining about the problem, we have to do something about it. So it's like my inspiration for my project. And I want to talk to you about our project. It's named Muevetex, and the problem that we are solving is public transport, like, well, all that subjects related. But in our validation board, we usually have the problem of establishing like if it's B2B or B2C, because we want to do both, and like the revenue sources, because I have like the understanding that we have to do like one validation board to each business model. So it gets like kind of difficult when validating, and we have been validating, but I don't know, sometimes we are like confused. So what advice would you give us like in that scenario?
I totally feel you, because we had the same issue. Like, we had actually in the beginning 3 different sets of clients, and we are trying to understand all of them. As I told you, we eliminated one, but we got a new one after, because today we work B2B and B2C. And one thing we discovered with time, so with mistakes as well, is that we need focus. So even if in the future you're going to work both B2B and B2C, start somewhere. Choose one of them to start and to really see if your company works. And once you are more established and this solution is working, you start to develop a new one. Other way, you are going to try to do everything and you might end up doing nothing. So even on the validation, I would advise you to talk to these 2 different publics to see who feels it more, who has the pain more latent. I don't know if that's a word in English, but okay. Who feels more the pain, who is suffering more from it, and who you could help now. Because it's also important to know what you could do with what you have now and start from there. And I think that's going to be a good start to see if B2B or B2C is best for you, what fits better in your tools right now. So you can start from that. And in the future, you have like everything to do again.
Okay, but for example, if the person that is gonna pay for, we have the idea to develop an app where the users can consult like the routes and information related to their routes of the buses. But we know that the users won't pay like for an app. It would be like a freemium app, and we want the public enterprises, like the ones
to pay for it.
To pay for it. But it is like that problem that if we approach to more enterprises, they would say like, okay, but there is any app like in this moment. So we don't know like in which one to focus first. I don't know if I...
Good. Yes, I think I understood it better now. You have a case where the person who uses your solution isn't the person who pays for it. So the person who pays is like the government or the other companies, and regular citizens are going to use it. So you have to think on both ways, because you have to have a good solution to who is going to receive. But you always need to remember that your customer is the person who is paying you. So your customer is the government. They are going to give you the money. So speak with them first, I would say. So we speak with them to see what they would be willing to pay for and to give. But you are going to speak with both publics. You first are going to speak with your customer, with the public companies, to see what they need, what they feel are the gaps. And even on this conversation, you tell them, okay, now we are going to talk with citizens. We are going to talk with people who uses public transportation to see what they need. And after you do this conversation with both publics, you are going to be able to deliver something that help people, so the citizens we want to use, but also something that is tangible for the public companies, something they are going to be willing to buy. You need to talk to both. I would do public companies, people, public companies as my way of conversation. But you're going to have to speak with all of them.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Josefina, you wanted to ask something.
Okay, nice to meet you. Josefina, and I have a question about can we gain money in a non-profit enterprise or in a donor enterprise?
Okay, good. That's really important. That's a question I really like, because that's like a taboo we have when we talk about social issues and nonprofits, that people think money is a bad thing. But the real thing is that we live in a capitalist world and we need money to work. So even if people have a nonprofit, it won't run without money. The money is coming from somewhere. Sometimes it's coming from the pocket of the volunteering people or the coordinators, but they have money being moved. So I really feel that people who run nonprofits, they should think more about their nonprofits as companies, because in the end, they are like companies. They have to manage people, to manage resources, to give solutions. They also have a problem to solve. So it's really important for them to understand it all and to pass the message to other people. The difference here is that when we have a nonprofit, all the money they raise is going to be used in the impact. So all the money is going to be used inside the nonprofit to pay people, to pay resources, to buy food, to buy clothes, whatever they need to run their nonprofits. And when we talk about a social company, which is the case of my company, for example, we can make profit. So we can make more money and we can share this money between the owners, just like a regular company. The difference is that we have the impact as our main goal. But both profit and nonprofit, they need money to work. In our specific case, the way we get money is that we stay with a percentage of the donation. So every person who donates in the website, they know that 10% of that money is going to stay with the platform, because we need it to pay the server, to pay the transaction and all the taxes we need. So that's how we make money. There are a lot of different models. If you like this subject, I really advise you to read for it. We have a lot of subjects on social entrepreneurship nowadays, and it's a really nice subject to study.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So Tawan from Brazil is asking, how did you define and how did you know that your problem was worth it? Was
Good.
worth enough to be resolved?
Good. I was one of the cases I described it, like it was something that I was feeling because I have a nonprofit. So we didn't have money and we were trying to raise and we saw it was really difficult. But in the beginning, as I told, we started wrong. So we made a mistake and I started only because I wanted and I felt that it was a problem. And that's not how you do it. So I started because I felt it. But after I realized it doesn't matter if only I feel it. More people have to have this problem for it to be worth enough to be solved. So I needed more people suffering from the same thing. So I went to look for it. And that's a really important thing you have to have in mind, to not to try to confirm what you think. Because sometimes we go after like, I feel this is a problem, I want this to be a problem, so I'm going there to validate the problem and to get the yes. You can't go with that idea. You have to go open, even to discover that the problem is not a problem. It's only something you feel and only you are suffering from it, and then you know that's not a good problem to be worth it. But if you talk with people totally open, not conducting the interview to the answers you want, and you hear from more people that this problem exists, it might be a start to see it's worth working on. And more, if you hear from people in the street, if you, on your research on the internet, on social media, you find a lot of people complaining about the same issue, it's even better, because you see that people are suffering from it even without you raising awareness to the problem. So you can look for it. There is a website, Google Analytics. You can throw your idea there. So for example, I talk about donation. So I can put donation there and see what people are researching about donation. And then I can see what are the problems people are experiencing. So if I'm talking about, I don't know, if I'm talking about public transportation, I go to Google Analytics and I put public transportations and I see all the things people search on Google about it. And some of the research people do are about problems. So it's like how to not be too bored in public transportation, how to know when my bus is going to pass, all this kind of stuff. And then you can start seeing if the problem is worth it. And another important thing I would say is to analyze your market. So look for numbers to see how many people could potentially work or buy your solution. I think you're going to see that in the future. I'm pretty sure it's part of the problem as well. But while doing that, be careful not to betray yourself with the numbers and not to be super positive, thinking like 1 million people suffer from it, so 1 million people are going to buy it, because it won't happen. You just need to know what is like the size of your potential market and then start working through it to achieve a small portion of it. But if you see it's a really high number of people fitting your profile, it's a good start as well.
Cool, awesome. So another one from Evelyn is how do you deal with risks when you're developing a project or product? What is the best way to identify those risks?
Good. Risks are always a part of the development of a solution. So all the time you're going to face risks through your way. A good thing for us, and I think it might be a good thing for many of the solutions you're going to have here, is that we are developing a lot of online and digital solutions. So they have risk, but the risk is smaller and you lose less money than before, while we had to have all physical solutions. But I think the best way to identify those risks and reduce them is to test before. Because as I told you, we changed our solutions 2 or 3 times. We changed everything. We had a model, we changed it completely to another model, and then we shifted again to something completely different. And imagine how bad it would be if we had all our solution developed, everything ready, and then we shift. We would have lost an incredible amount of time, maybe an incredible amount of money, but we didn't invest money in the beginning, but we would lose time, we would lose effort, we would even lose connections. So try to test, you try to make an MVP, so the minimal viable product. So for example, as I told, we started as a raffle. So we would sell numbers and then give a prize. So we did like a regular raffle. We made the piece of papers, and went to the street to sell it. After, when we changed it to the donation club itself, we only had a PayPal account, and we would send the link to people to see how many people would buy. We didn't develop the entire website before without knowing if the problem was real and if the solution was actually the solution people needed. So what I would advise you is to try to validate. So every time you think about a solution, think about the smaller and easiest way you can try it and do it. It might be a Google form, it might be selling, I don't know, on Instagram or something like that. And only after that you invest time and sometimes money, but especially time, to make your company grow and start. Don't put everything in the beginning, because the risks are going to be bigger. If you start smaller, the risks are smaller as well.
Awesome. Here's another one. I think it's related with what you are talking about, is from Luis Antonio. In your case, or in general, when do you materialize your idea? Like, when do you start to see results?
Good. So I actually think these are 2 different questions, because you actually start to materialize your idea way before you start to seeing the results. Because even today, we have a lot of sales at Grifa. We are moving money, donations. It's not what we wanted yet, but it's a good amount. We are moving every month and every week. But it's not enough yet, for example, to pay me and my co-owner living expenses and this kind of stuff. So we are not still being profitable, but we are on our way to do it. But we started materializing it as soon as we had a solution to the problem. So we first developed the problem. The entire process of the design thinking took something like 2 months to do the research and to develop everything. And after that, we found the idea. And as soon as we had the idea of how it would look like, we started the MVP. So we started testing and doing everything. And while we were testing everything that we validated, so everything we saw that was working, we started to develop on the platform to give people a easiest way to do it. And we are a startup. So every day things changes. Every day we are developing new tools and new gadgets on the platform for people to use. So even after you start materializing, as I told, you have to validate, you have to go talk to people, you have to change stuff, and actually to give what your customer want. And only along after that, you are going to start to see real results, especially in terms of money, because in terms of people, of, I don't know, talks I'm giving and everything, we are seeing these results. People are looking for us, are talking to us, are really looking for our help. But the money takes a little bit longer to start growing. And even another thing, in the beginning, usually it's common to reinvest all the money on the company. So we have our percentage we are getting from every donation, but most of the money we get, we are reinvesting in the solution so it can keep growing faster, because that's like the startup mentality. If you are going to have a traditional business, it might look a little bit different, but that's how it worked for us.
Cool. Johanderson says, how did you feel and how did you move on after your first project didn't work?
No, that's a good question. And that's a hard thing, actually, because I'm going to share with you, when we started with our first idea, we had 5 people working with us. We were like a team of 5 working on this topic to develop the solution, selling everything. And we started we kept with the old idea for something like 6 months. And after we did the design thinking process, we realized, oh, it's not working. We are going to have to change. 1 people left. So we had 4. As soon as we said, oh, it's going to change. So the person was too attached to the solution, not to the problem. And we found it really quick, because as I told you, one thing we cut out was the experience part of the company. And this person was there because of the experience, but the experience wasn't fitting the proposition value of the company. We were not talking about experiences. We were talking about raising money. And this wasn't why this person was there working with us. He's my friend. We are still friends. Nothing changed in that. But he left the company because he wasn't feeling the same way. We weren't on the same page. And after, this was during the process. When we found our new solution, another person left. And we stayed in 3. So it was good and hard at the same time, especially because people were leaving. But we saw this as an important process, because we realized we were looking for different things. So some people were there because of the donation, some people were there because of the experiences. And when we focused, people who actually wanted to stay there because of the problem, they stayed. And that's a phrase you are going to hear a lot after you enter the entrepreneurship world. It's like, feel in love with the problem, not with the solution. The solution is going to change, and it's not a problem if the solution still works with the problem. So really feel in love with what you want to solve. Make this solving this issue like what moves you. And the solution, it doesn't matter that much. Is it important? Of course. If you have only the problem, you don't have a company. But feel in love with the problem, and that's what's going to move you. So for me, it was better to move on. It was easier because I was in love with the problem. I was wanting to solve the problem, no matter what solution I found was the right one. So that's how the process was for me.
That's amazing. Like, is there any key element? Is it a matter of motivation or personality, like that you decide to continue with the idea?
I don't know. I think I always wanted to have something mine. And because I suffered from the problem, I think it felt more in me, was suffering more from it. So it mattered the most for me. And I always connected with the issue. And that's a tip I would give for you too. Find something you are connected with. If we have a lot of business models and companies that they are like trending now. And don't go to something only because it's trending. Go to something you really connect, you really are good at. I don't know if you heard before about Ikigai. It's like a model. So find something the world needs, you know how to do, you love, and that can give you money. And that's like the best solution. Don't try to do something only because other people are doing, and don't try to do something that has nothing to do with you. See what fits your personality, your ideas, everything you feel and think.
Awesome. Thank you. So Bruno is saying, do you have any tips for someone who wants to work with that link between who needs something and who offers the solution?
Good. I think it goes a lot towards what I told Regina about. It's like talk to all the publics. So we speak with everybody so you can develop a solution that not only helps the more needed public, so the person who needs something, but also who helps the person who pays. For us, for example, we found the person who suffers the most is actually the organization. So the organization needs the money to survive. So they are the person needing the solution the most, but they don't have money to pay for it. So that's why we go after the donation and keep a percentage of what they get from donations in the platform. But we also found that the organizations, the companies, the people that were donation through us, they had benefits as well. So for companies, they had all the marketing opportunities to say they were helping a social project and everything about it. And for people, we found a lot of research, and we did our researches ourselves to see that people feel happier when they help someone. So that's how we communicate with people. We communicate with them showing the benefits. And in your case as well, and in Regina's case, the communication is going to be different depending on the public you are talking with. She won't use the same words to talk with the public company and to talk with the citizens who are using public transportation. She can use, for example, slangs to talk with regular people. She can use their language. She can be really informal with them. While talking with the government, with the public companies, she has to be more formal. She has to speak more technically to present that data, to present people that they relate most. So always understand your public the most that you can. Speak with them, talk a lot with them. If possible, have a mentor in each public, so it's going to help you all the time. And that's how you're going to be able to shift the communication and to actually give a good solution to all publics. So this would be my tip. And this is my tip actually for everything. Talk to people, but on this specific case, learn how you have to relate with each of the publics. You're welcome.
Good, awesome. So I have one question.
Good.
If there's no more questions, like guys, if you have more questions, you can raise your hand or just open your mic. I will say mine. So if you could describe your entrepreneurship journey in 3 words, what would they be?
3 words. Oh, I think it was a lot of self-understanding. So to realize who I am and what I want to do. It was a lot of learning, and it still is. If you were not learning in the process, something is wrong. We never know everything. You'll keep discovering stuff on our journey. So self-knowledge, learning, and I think challenge as well. Every day is a new challenge. And I think that's the fun part about being an entrepreneur. You have different stuff to do every day, different challenges, different issues happening. And that's the magic of it.
Awesome. So any tip for self-discovering, self-knowing yourself?
I think you can ask the same questions you are planning to ask people to yourself. So that's a good way to start. But there are also some tools you can use. As I told, we have Ikigai. We also have SWOT. So I think it's the same name, right? SWOT. So you can use to see what are your strengths, your weaknesses, what your potentials and everything. And I think it's a really good planning to do, to know more about yourself. And more than you doing it, ask people close to you for them to tell you your strengths and everything. I have a friend, for example, that he's going to run for elections in 2022, and he's planning already. And he sent a form to a lot of people he knew to ask what were his strengths, what are like his weaknesses, his opportunities, and his threats. And he sent it to like 50 people he knew to make this question. Not all 50 people are going to answer, but if you have like 20 answers, that's a good way to learn about yourself. So you know what you feel and what you think, but also how other people see you.
That's so cool. And we have another one. Diego is, first of all, thank you for your participation. It was really interesting and helped me a lot to think in my personal idea. My question is, how did you look for strategic partners or companies in the beginning? And what was your biggest difficulty about networking process?
Good. We start with the difficult. Our biggest challenge on this issue. It's about my city. We are in a city that people are really conservative about some ideas. So when we find a model that's like, let's donate, let's help nonprofits, people don't look well on it. So that was our main challenge, the culture we have here in the city. And I imagine some of you have the same issues depending on the company and the places you are at. So I feel that was the biggest challenge we had. But to conturn that, so to make it possible, we kept with people who believed in us. So every time we found someone who said, oh, that's nice, that's a good problem, oh, I think your idea might work, we kept with them and we didn't let them leave. So we used them as mentors, as helpers to connect us with other people. So for example, there's a lady that she runs a company here in the city and she loves the project and she loves me and everything. So every time she has the opportunity, she introduced me to new people. And every time I'm looking for, oh, I need a supermarket to talk with, I tell her and she finds one to help me. And another thing that helped a lot is I was at university when I started. So I had the university connections to go with as well. And my internship, because I was working in a company that worked with other companies. So which worked teaching people how to be entrepreneurs and everything. So they really helped me in the beginning because I got in contact with the students and the students had companies and everything. So it was a good way to start this networking process. So the tip I would give you is, even if you find one person who believes in your idea, is stick with this person, that it will open you other doors.
Yeah, I think that's really important because that's the way that you grow, right?
Yes.
Like it's the way, and because you are not just selling, like it's not only a product, it's an experience, right? Like
yes.
a changing thing.
That's
so you need to connect. Like I don't know, like I feel I don't really like the network word
yes.
because it's just it feels kind of superficial.
I want something from you, yes.
Exactly. Like it's more like for me, it's more like doing meaningful relations, right?
Yes, creating connections, like meaningful connections, and talking to people. And that's an important thing what Pilar said. So we all, sometimes when you think, for example, in partnerships, we always think about what we want from the partner, but you have also to think on what you can give. So what you give people, how they can connect to you and all this stuff. And I think that's the best beginning, because once you stop thinking about people as connections and start thinking people about relationships, you are going to connect better and relate better with them.
Awesome. Yeah, totally. So is there any other question, guys? Or any final thoughts you want to share with us, Bianca?
If there's no question, I can share some thoughts. But I think Martin has a question.
Well, we have many questions, but it was clarified by your words. You're really awesome, and you have experience. And when you talk from the experience, all the will be better and more painful. So, but by now I have two key points that you shared with us that I enlightened that the most important. One of them is ask people for experiences and from histories. So that's a very, very clever advice that you give us to us today. Always we were using surveys or many instruments like that. But when we talk to people, when we empathize with people and discover what they're using, how they're using, how they're doing, and so on, we can bring all this data from the emotions, from the feelings of the people by experiences and by histories. So that's a very nice, it's a clever advice. Thank you so much, Bianca. And the other one is the way you embody the design sprint concept into the design thinking. So that's also awesome.
Yeah, that it wasn't just theory, right? Like she gave us a really, really insightful journey of the design thinking process, right? It's not because most of the times we only see like design thinking as theory, as steps to follow, but not as deep as you have shared with us.
Yes, that's right. Well, in the academic side, all the people is fighting about sprint and design thinking and so on, and you find a way to embody both of them.
And I think that's important because we learn better from experience, right? So even though like you can read all theory and study all theory, if you don't go and do, you aren't going to learn it as well as trying, right?
Yes, you ride a bike, as we used to say.
Yes, that's true.
Thank you, Martin.
You're welcome.
So yeah, there are no more questions. If you want to share last, oh, there's a new message.
Oh, Diego asked if I can share the PowerPoint. Yes, I can. I will send Pilar and she can email you and everything.
Yes, of course.
It was really good to be here with you guys and keep counting on me. I left my Instagram, but I'm going to send you here my LinkedIn link. So if you want to connect and ask questions, feel free. I'm here to help you through this journey. And the last insight I would like to leave is that it is a journey. So you're going always to be learning and to be changing and shifting. And that's nothing wrong in that. If one day your company is totally ready, something is wrong, and probably it's time for you to start changing. If we look today, for example, for companies who didn't keep changing Kodak, for example, from pictures, they were left behind. So keep growing always and enjoy the opportunities. Opportunities like this one in Wadani, the course and everything is really good for your self-growth and to help your companies to grow as well. So every time you have the chance to take part in a program like that, do, accept it and learn from it. And in the future, you are going to be giving talks as well. I participated in many programs like this before, and it was really important for my journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bianca, for being here with us and sharing this experience. It was really, really helpful for all of us. I think it was amazing, an amazing masterclass.
Thank you very much. Keep counting on me. Every time you need, I'm here.
Of course, we will. We will.
Thank you, Bianca. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.